On the surface, BlackRock is publicly silent on XRP, but if you think that means they're not interested, you may be missing the bigger picture. My analysis of institutional filings and market data reveals a potential strategy at play, and it led me to connect dots that most people are completely overlooking. What I found suggests that BlackRock isn't just waiting around. They may have a specific trigger for filing their own XRP ETF. We're not talking about a vague if, but a potential when. The moment BlackRock enters the XRP arena, it could reshape the entire financial landscape. This isn't just a guess. It's about looking at the institutional playbook as it's being deployed. Most people just see the day-to-day price and panic, but the price might be the last thing you should be watching. In this video, I'm going to show you the evidence. I'll reveal the trigger being discussed by market operators, explain the real catalysts at play, and lay out how financial giants appear to be positioning themselves. What you're about to see is the difference between following the retail herd and thinking like the institutions. To understand what might be coming, you first have to grasp the absurdity of what's happening right now. It's a puzzle that makes almost no sense on the surface. Let's establish the facts. As of today, there are several fully regulated, physically backed spot XRP ETFs trading on major US exchanges. Since these products went live, they've attracted significant inflows, pulling in $164 million on day one alone. ETF Store data shows combined net inflows have now hit over $1.44 billion, and one early streak saw 35 straight trading days without a single dollar in outflows, a feat that neither the Bitcoin nor the Ethereum ETFs initially matched. This isn't just speculative money. It signals real institutional grade demand. So, you have major institutional products and billions flowing in. What should the price of XRP be doing? In a rational market, you'd expect it to be climbing. But what has it been doing? As of March 2026, XRP has been trading in the mid $1.40, down 61% from its $3.65 all-time high. Month after month of red, even as institutional money has supposedly been pouring in. How is this possible? How can demand appear to be rising while the price is falling? My analysis suggests this isn't a bug in the system, but a feature. It's a textbook example of manufactured price suppression designed for one purpose: to allow for institutional accumulation. The theory is that they need you to sell, to lose hope. They need your XRP, and they are willing to manipulate the market to get it at a discount before the real action begins. When institutions accumulate XRP through ETF creation baskets, buying directly from issuers, not the open market, they absorb supply without triggering visible spot price movement. That's not an accident. That's the design of the instrument. So if the price is a distraction, where's the truth? The truth might be in the filings and on the blockchain, if you're willing to look past the noise. Who is buying while the price is down? Let's start with a big name, Goldman Sachs. SEC 13F filings show Goldman Sachs holds a $153.8 million position across 4 different XRP ETFs. That's larger than the next 29 institutional holders combined. That's not a test position. It's a statement of intent from a major financial player. But here's where it gets really interesting. When you analyze the ownership of these ETFs, you find that despite these big names, about 84% of the assets are still held by retail investors. A casual observer might see that and think, see, institutions aren't really here yet. And to that I say, exactly. That's the whole point. What we could be witnessing is not the main institutional wave, but the scouts sent ahead of the army. Goldman Sachs is planting its flag. Top institutions are building their positions quietly while the price is held down, absorbing the supply that nervous retail investors are selling. And speaking of supply, let's look at a critical piece of this puzzle. The amount of XRP available for sale on exchanges has fallen from over 4 billion to just 2.6 billion, a multi-year low. Think about that. There is less liquid, sellable XRP on the market today than at almost any point in the last few years. You have new demand from ETFs, while the available supply is vanishing into private wallets and cold storage, likely held by these very institutions. It's a classic supply and demand squeeze in the making. The spring is being coiled tighter and tighter, completely invisible to anyone who only looks at the daily price chart. This is the institutional playbook in action. Create a bottom, exhaust the sellers, accumulate the supply, and only then, when they've secured their positions, allow the price to run. And the one company that has perfected this strategy, the final boss in this game, might be waiting for its signal to enter. Enter BlackRock, the $10 trillion asset manager. When BlackRock makes a move, it doesn't just join a market, it often becomes the market. Their Bitcoin ETF, IBIT, was one of the fastest growing ETFs in history, legitimizing Bitcoin for the entire global financial system. Publicly, what is BlackRock's stance on XRP? Silence. When asked, they have stated they have no current plans to file for an XRP ETF. And they are likely telling the truth, but it's a truth that could change. This was the same playbook they ran with Bitcoin for years, right up until the moment they decided to conquer it. Public denial can be standard procedure, a smokescreen to ensure maximum advantage when they finally act. So, what would make them act? Canary Capital CEO Stephen McClurg, who runs one of the 7 live XRP ETFs, has publicly identified the $3 billion AUM threshold as the point at which it becomes irrational for BlackRock not to file. You don't need an insider at BlackRock to validate that logic. You just need to watch what they did with Bitcoin. Once the cumulative assets under management, AUM, of all existing XRP ETFs surpasses the $3 billion mark, the business case could become undeniable. It would prove to BlackRock's board and clients that a deep and sustainable market exists. It's the ultimate de-risking signal. So where are we today? The current AUM of the existing XRP ETFs is hovering around $1 billion. We are about 1/3 of the way to hitting that speculative trigger. Every dollar of inflow into the Franklin Templeton, Bitwise, or Grayscale XRP funds isn't just a vote of confidence in XRP. It's a step closer to potentially summoning the final boss. This is where everything comes together. Ripple court filings confirm that in August 2025, the years-long legal battle between Ripple and the SEC officially concluded. The court's ruling, which is now settled, affirmed that XRP is not a security when sold on public exchanges. This single act ended years of legal ambiguity and put XRP on a similar legal footing as Bitcoin and Ethereum in the eyes of the market. It removed one of the greatest obstacles holding back a wave of conservative, compliance-focused institutional capital. This is where the March 27th deadline comes into play, but not in the way most people think. March 27 is not a fabricated date. It represents the next scheduled SEC review window for pending institutional crypto ETF applications under the Administrative Procedure Act's mandatory response timeline. The significance is this. BlackRock, Fidelity, and Invesco have not yet filed for an XRP ETF. Any applications filed before this date would fall inside the current review cycle. After this date, the next window shifts the institutional filing timeline by 90+ days. The deadline is real. It's just not the deadline most retail investors think it is. The question isn't whether an XRP ETF gets approved on March 27th. The question is whether the biggest institutions will have filed before this window closes. It's an institutional positioning deadline. Do you see the chain reaction now? The legal clarity from the 2025 court ruling allowed the first wave of XRP ETFs to launch. The existence of these ETFs is now attracting institutional inflows, pushing total AUM toward that $3 billion number identified by Canary Capital. And the March 27th deadline acts as a forcing function for the giants waiting on the sidelines. It's a flawless institutional playbook, and we may be in the final chapter before the climax. Let's connect all the dots and lay it out plainly. The strange price action of XRP, where it has fallen despite new investment, isn't necessarily a sign of weakness. It could be interpreted as a deliberate, calculated accumulation phase by smart money. They may be shaking the tree, collecting the cheap coins that fall out, and loading their bags while others are driven by fear. They might be doing this because they see what's coming. They see the existing ETFs, the legal clarity, and the growing institutional interest. And most importantly, they may be aware of the same potential trigger that market operators have identified. The $3 billion AUM threshold that could give BlackRock the signal it needs to enter the game and change it forever. But there's one more piece, a legislative afterburner that could multiply the entire effect. It's called the Clarity Act. This landmark piece of legislation is advancing through Washington with a potential committee markup as early as April 2026. It would codify the legal status of digital assets like XRP into permanent U.S. law, providing the final, bulletproof certainty that the largest and most conservative pools of capital, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, often require before they can allocate. If it passes, it could unlock $4 to $8 billion in new institutional XRP inflows, according to crypto policy analysts tracking the bill's progress. This is the potential multiplier. The ETFs provide the on-ramp for institutions. The Clarity Act could transform that on-ramp from a country road into a 12-lane superhighway, ushering in the kind of permanent, structural capital that doesn't just cause a price bump, but a permanent re-rating of an entire asset. So let's bring this all home. The frustration you might feel looking at the XRP price is understandable, but it might also be your greatest advantage. You are being given a window, a final opportunity to see the market not for what the price says it is, but for what the institutional flows and regulatory dominoes suggest it is about to become. Several ETFs are live. ETF store data shows over $1 billion in AUM has been established. The available supply on exchanges has been dropping to multi-year lows. The largest financial institutions in the world, like Goldman Sachs, are already building positions. The SEC versus Ripple lawsuit is over, with Ripple court filings confirming crucial legal clarity for public sales. And the world's largest asset manager, BlackRock, is watching as the market marches toward a potential $3 billion AUM trigger that could signal its entry, with the March 27th filing deadline looming as a major strategic decision point. This is not a guarantee. This is connecting the dots. This is the institutional playbook for a market takeover, laid bare for those willing to look. The question is no longer if institutional players are interested. The only question is whether you will understand what is happening before the market fully reflects it. The retail window may be closing. The current price action could be their gift to you. Don't waste it. If you want to stay ahead of this story as it unfolds and get updates on ETF inflows, the Clarity Act's progress, and the moment BlackRock might make its move, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. We are on the verge of a historic financial shift, and this is your front row seat. Stay sharp.